All right, ladies and gentlemen, get ready to transform your mindset and elevate your personal development journey with the one and the only Joey De Paola. Joey is a digital marketing specialist, a public speaker, and a visionary strategist. Buckle up, because today we're embarking on a thrilling adventure towards unlocking your full potential and transforming your life. Welcome the young, the handsome, the gorgeous, the vibrant, the one and only Joey De Paola. Joey, thanks for joining me today, brother.
Yes, sir, man. Absolute pleasure. Honor to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
You're rocking the Magnum PI mustache. For those of you who can see this, I love that, man.
Yes, sir. Had to bring it back out.
If I could do that, I would. If I could grow facial hair like that, man, I would do that in a heartbeat, brother. Well done.
I was never able to grow facial hair until I started the mustache. I just had like little stubble, and then I said, you know what? I've never tried growing a mustache, and for some reason, that's the only facial hair I can actually rock. So
I love it. You have to know who Tom Selleck is by now with that mustache. That's a little before your time. And that leads me into my first question, brother. You're like 24 years old. We met a couple of months ago. You have an energy about you. What did you do so you are in the position you are in from a mind space and personal development space at 24 years old?
Yeah, so it all started when I was younger. I grew up as a only child raised from a single mother. And I always was a little bit different in that aspect in growing up in school. My mom wasn't around. She was working 2 jobs to pay the bills. And I didn't have a fun time in school. And I really hit a bad point, actually, when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, where I started to develop really, really severe anxiety and panic disorder. And at the time, I had no idea what was happening. At the time, my friends weren't able to help me. My mom wasn't around. Dad wasn't around. So I was really in a dark spot for a while, and I was looking for some sort of light. And after a couple of years of going through that and, really trying to do whatever I could and equip myself in any way possible I could, I realized I couldn't do this without the help of someone else. So I turned to, first it was movies, and specifically Star Wars. I loved Star Wars, but I really started to pay more attention, because the stuff that like Yoda says, the stuff that the Jedi stand for and stuff like that, it's not just a science fiction thing. It's kind of a way of life and a way of viewing the world. And I realized that there was a different way I could see the world than the way I grew up in. And I had to make that choice to actually, figure out, what is that other world? What other worlds are out there? How can I see the world in the way that actually isn't hurting me, but serving me? And it really embarked me on a journey that, from that time till where I'm at now, it's just been super invested in personal development, everything from NLP, whatever it is that can better myself and I can share with others, I'm interested in learning.
Is there is there a book that did it for you? I mean, first of all, congratulations on that, because that takes a ton of maturity and self-awareness that most adults, I don't think, in my opinion, ever really get to have that type of like shift in their mind. For me, there was a specific book that was recommended to me that kind of like kicked me off. Was there a book or a conversation or somebody you followed on Instagram that kicked you off into this journey?
It was a couple of different books, and I didn't recognize at the time that those books even had like a meaning. It wasn't the right time for me to read those books. First one started off with the 4 Agreements. And then I found out about Tony Robbins from just social media, and I picked up his book, Awaken the Giant Within, from a bookstore. And I was reading through both those books in high school, but they weren't hitting me the way that I wasn't ready to actually like learn the information. So those 2 books definitely hit it off for me. And that led into another book, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And that book right there really changed a lot of things for me, because I started to recognize, I was thinking a lot about anxiety, thinking about a lot of panic, whatever situation I was in. And that was my world. And that book really opened my eyes that I can choose a different world and live that world.
You talked about how, like, and we've all experienced this, right? You read a book, it hits you. And then you read it like a year later or 5 years later or 3 years later or 6 months later, whatever. Right. And then all of a sudden it hits you it hits you a different way. In your opinion, explain that. What's happening in the psyche, in the brain, in the mind space, in the spiritual, that different things hit at different times in your life? How would you articulate that?
I would say you really have to be equipped with the skill of being adaptable, because, and what I mean by adaptability is you have to be ready to question things that make you you, or things that you think make you you. So if you have to really look at your values, you have to look at like what you care about, and what's important to you, because that's the lens that you're viewing the world from. So if you're reading a book that isn't exactly in alignment with the perspective that you're seeing the world at a current time, then it's not going to resonate with you because it just won't be important.
Mm-hmm.
And what really does it for me is I try, because it's a work in progress of always being able to say, hey, can I look at this from a different angle, because this might help me, just maybe not how I'm currently looking at it. Whenever I read a book and it's not hitting me, I'll put it down for a couple of weeks and I'll say, I'm not ready for this, because how I'm viewing this book right now and how I want the information to help me isn't maybe how it needs to help me. And I have to surrender what I want for what I need. And that's usually when it really hits me.
Dude, you just described like just kind of open-mindedness. That is something that I did not live in that space for most of my life. And I think that one of the aspects of my journey was, again, looking at the world and the ways of this world in a less dogmatic way. And when I did that, man, like things like super opened up for me, in the world like became color and like multi-dimensional. Do you have a similar experience?
Yeah, you know what, he just brought back a memory. One of the first books that actually really did it for me too was Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk, I believe it was called. And I was listening to the audio version of that book. And that book, actually, I remember when I read it, I always had a perception and a perspective of how monks lived, and said that I could never be that, because I didn't grow up that heritage culture. It's totally different. And I remember listening to that book, and I was like, wait, this stuff isn't so far-fetched that it's not unattainable. I can reach it. And that really brought a different color and brightened my mind up, because I'm like, wait a second, I can actually learn mindfulness meditation. I'm not disconnected from it. It's there and it's available. It might be a little bit more harder for me to learn it because I'm not in that environment, but the job is still up to me to actually put my feet forward and kind of walk towards that path and learn what it's trying to show me.
Yeah. There's lots of good stuff out there. If you're willing and open to diving in. You just brought up like the word meditation. Like, for example, that word, like right off the bat, can like scare a lot of people right off the bat. Just like give people like, what's that mean to you? What does it mean for you?
Oh, it horrified me when I was in high school, because the worst thing that I could do was sit alone with myself, because I was having panic attacks, anxiety. So whenever I'd try following a breathing exercise or something like that, I was terrified, because I'm like, I can't catch my breath. I can't slow my mind down, can't slow my heart down. This is not for me. This actually is making it worse. And again, that's because the state I was in, I was trying to introduce something new into a state that it wasn't compatible in. So mindfulness meditation for me nowadays, it really means figuring out what exactly helps bring you to a place of peace and calmness, and embracing that. And it changes over time. Some things that like really help for me now are Tai Chi, physical based meditations, because trauma lives in the body. It really, really does. And if you have a lot of trauma and you're trying to sit still, which is kind of the perspective a lot of people have what meditation is, just sitting still and fingers like this and eyes closed breathing, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage, because there's other ways that you can practice meditation, and the physical ones help me so much.
Man, you're speaking my language and describing my journey in a lot of ways. What I have found, and let me know if you connect with this, but like the way that I dealt with the anxiety, the negative thoughts, was just like keep myself insanely busy, like just never let myself calm down.
Yeah.
Like just fill in the time, and then that created some pathways of like, the busier I am, the more successful I am, even though I'm not really moving the needle. I'm just kind of keeping myself busy. I've been learning more about like kind of the masculine and the feminine side of life, and I was just thinking about this morning, where it was like, I have leaned so heavily in my life on the masculine, but there's a balance there. There's a balance of like, we can be too spiritual, but we can also be too rational. We can also be, we can be too like, I'm just going to go and get it and just grind and grind and grind. But also too, there's this other side that's like, I'm just going to sit here and just wait for the divine to show up. Where have you seen that correlation show up, and where's the balance for you?
Yeah. So I grew up, like I said, my mom was a single mother. So I grew up around a lot of feminine energy, because I actually moved out the first time I ever moved out was actually in freshman year, and I moved into an aunt's house where I was in more feminine energy. And I realized there was a big absence I realized very early on that there was a big absence of masculine energy in my life. I was very conversational, very open to my emotions, and very in touch with how I was feeling. Whereas a lot of, the masculine energy nowadays is very, push the feelings away, focus on whatever it is that you want to do. You just hustle and grind it out and stuff like that. And I learned later in life that, there's a place for both of those, and there's a necessity of both of those. You can't be one way without the other, because if you're too feminine and too in your head and too in touch with your emotions, it can actually disable you and handicap you from being able to take action. And if you're too masculine, too tapped into the masculine energy, you can be, like you were saying, just too on the go and too not in touch with how you're truly feeling. You're just at a baseline level with yourself. So marrying the two is really just opening yourself up to the exposure of maybe what could this look like if I tapped into my feminine energy and masculine energy. And the problem that a lot of people have is how can you do that? Like for me, I didn't have many male role models. So I was like, how can I tap into the masculine energy and figure out what it actually like, how I can get that fire ignited in me and whatnot. And it really helps to find role models, whether it be Hollywood role models or when you read a book and you like the author, like follow them and look at how certain people act and how certain people show themselves and what certain people talk about and what resonates with them, and see what works for you. And eventually you'll find out the stuff that from the masculine energy and feminine energy that kind of mixes well with you. And then you'll have your kind of like balance, but you're always being pulled in one direction or the other. So it's constantly, you have to be aware.
It's a delicate balance to me. If you lean too heavily on the grind, like just grind it out, come hell or high water, I'm going to grind this out, which is the way I did it for like 43 years. Like you can do that for so long. And then you hit like about my age, which is about midlife. And you're like, oh, dude, I just can't do this anymore. It's too exhausting, Yeah. And, so you'll fry yourself out so fast. But for high achievers, that's a tough pill to swallow, because I feel like if I chill a little bit, kind of like if I try to find that peace, then I'm not doing enough. And it's kind of, there's this internal struggle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I do now, whenever I think about that specific instance, is I myself, and I try to tell people, imagine yourself at your own funeral, and what are your friends and your family going to say about you? And that's going to tell you exactly where your priorities are in life. Because if you're a high achiever and you think you're doing a really good job, and you think that because you're hustling, you're making such a big impact in other people's lives, or you just think that you're living the good life, ask yourself, if you're at your funeral, what are the people around you and your friends, family, the people you love going to say about you? And you have to be honest with yourself. If you're spending too much time working and not with them, that right there is a tough pill to swallow. If you're imagining your best friend saying, he was a great worker, great grinder, but he wasn't there for me when I was in my lowest of lows. And that's something that's a reality for a lot of people, is how available are you for life beyond just work? And that right there is a pill that a lot of people don't want to hear, but it's something they have to hear. And that takes work. It took me a while before I could actually like sit down with myself and said, here's how I think my friends view me. Here's how I think my family views me. Here's how I think my coworkers view me. And when I actually got honest with myself, I was like, I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with where my energy is going right now. I have to start putting it into the areas that actually matter to me. And what matters to me is what those people are saying up there that would be talking at my funeral.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And those are words that hit home for a lot of people, and are very sobering to a lot of people as well, especially for people that really push and push and push. Do you think that if you can find that balance, it's almost that you can get farther faster?
Yeah.
Than trying to like lean to one side, like where and I'm asking you because I'm genuinely that's where I am, and I want to know, like, where is that sweet spot where you marry the divine and you marry the work effort, like to get off your butt and work, to where you find that sweet spot where you unlock the biggest potential and make the biggest moves, but yet enjoy your life at the greatest capacity? What would you tell somebody who's struggling to find that?
So I would first ask them where they're at right now. And what a lot of people say is their speed, go, go, go. They feel like they're doing good. They're a high achiever. But the way I view it is almost like if you get launched from a catapult. But if you're so 100% invested in only the hustle, the grind, you can think of it as you're still attached to that catapult. Even though you're a mile away, you thought you're good, you got slung off, you're feeling really good, powerful, there's going to be a point when it pulls you back because you were ignoring some other things. You never cut yourself loose. You're going to get really far, but then you're falling really behind in a lot of other areas. So what I would say is really to set realistic expectations on what does achievement for you mean day to day? For me, achievement for me day to day meant like I have to accomplish so much stuff. I had to do so much. I was burning myself out. I had to fall asleep burnt out in order for me to feel accomplished. That included, whether it be making a certain amount of phone calls a day or doing a certain amount of work or making sure I'm going to the gym a certain amount of time. I had all these expectations for what I wanted. And that wasn't the way that I needed to do it. When you go to bed at night, you should be able to have enough energy left mentally that you can journal on a piece of paper and say, was what I did today in alignment with where I want to go? And those thoughts that come up right there are going to give you direction for tomorrow. But if you don't ever take the time to question if where you're at and what you're doing right now is in alignment with where you want to go, you're never going to be able to marry the two. So you hustle during the day, but at night you have to make sure you're redirecting your focus to what's important. And then you keep doing that day to day. And then you'll find, okay, I'm doing stuff for me and for what I think is important for me. And I'm not just grinding because I think I want to do this. I'm doing this because like internally, I know I want to do this.
Dude, I love that. I love that mindset. I love that. I want to be able to go to bed with enough mental energy where I can think rationally, not rationally, but like think intuitively in the spirit man and like plan. And again, that you just represented my life for like so many years where it was like, if I'm going to bed just completely exhausted, I won. And I'm not, that's not necessarily a win. What I have found, and let me ask you if this is what you've seen as well. It seems like when you run to the edge, you know what I mean? Like where you're pushing yourself to the edge, because again, we're high achievers. We're trying to unlock the most we can out of life, live life undeferred, whatever you want to call it, man, like push it to the max. When I do that, it puts me in a mental space that is not, what's the word? It's not productive. It's not fruitful. It's now I'm in the reactionary because I'm tired. And now it puts me kind of in the non-spiritual mindset. And now I'm making really poor reactionary decisions. How would you articulate that?
Man, the amount of times that I picked up a book and I read something and right then and there, I tried putting it into place in my life, or I watched a video online and tried implementing whatever I read and saw like right then and there without giving myself a second or a minute or 10 minutes, an hour to think about how can I actually apply this to my life, because I was just in such a go high achiever mode. I mean, that I still struggle with that because it's something that we all want to accomplish like so much, but you have to give yourself those little pauses to be able to step back from the ledge and really just take a second and say, hey, is this even applicable to me? And take those moments and those pauses. I truly believe that the pause is the most important part, because if you're reacting to absolutely everything in your life, whether it be arguments, relationships, friendships, conversations, what you're reading, you're living in a state that isn't serving you. You might think it's serving you in the moment, but it's really hurting you. And that pause where you get to make a choice is where I think that beauty and love and all these things that really bring us happiness can be found.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. You say everything is possible. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I do believe that. I do. I truly believe that, because I didn't think, well, there's a lot of different reasons why I believe it, but I actually had a really big perception of my life when I was younger that I wanted to join the military. I wanted to do all these different things, and that was my goal in life. And when I was a freshman in high school, I completely blew up my knee in a wrestling match. And I basically got surgery, and the surgery failed, and I was told I can get another surgery, but there's a really, really high chance you'll never be able to join the military. And my life was crushed right there. And throughout high school, I was like, man, everything I thought I wanted to do from the second I was like 6, 7 years old, I am no longer able to do. I thought that because I wasn't able to join the military, now like life is, there's so many things that I can't do now. I developed a mindset that, life isn't for me. It's against me, and I'm incapacitated, or I'm incapable of doing the things I wanted to do. But I had to come to the consensus that maybe that wasn't my path, and I had to be okay with that. And I had to say to myself, what do I really want in life? And what do I want to achieve? Not like what do I think I'm capable of, but like what is actually the mission that I want to accomplish, no matter what. And when I took a step back, I was like, I really just want to help make the world a happier place. because I grew up around a lot of unhappiness, around a lot of behavior that was not good, domestic violence, domestic abuse. I grew up in an environment that what normal was, it wasn't what I wanted the world to be. And I said, I wanted to make an impact on the world that can change a lot of people's lives and help a lot of people that don't understand that there's a different way of viewing the world. And it seems like a big thing, and maybe I can't do that. Maybe I can't make an impact like MLK or Gandhi, but I'm not going to live with the idea that it's not possible, because the second I adopt that mentality, same thing with the military, I lose all my capacity to be able to make any progress.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, taking the step forward and trying to make that progress, you'll never really know what is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I love that. Like, just be a child. The Bible talks about childlike faith, and I think that that's so important as an adult. It's easy to have childlike faith when you're a child, but it makes it harder when you get like the traumas and the experience, and you tack on some decades. I love what you said too about like, it may not be possible, but I don't want to believe that it's not possible, because what I'm doing is I'm now sowing seeds of like lack in the spiritual. You know what I'm saying? I ask you that question because it's sometimes you see videos online and people are like, you know, you're fooling yourself when you tell your kids they can be anything they want. What you're doing is you're lying to them. You know, I mean, I've got multiple children. It's like I don't want to ever sow that seed into them. Now, for example, I played college basketball. I'm 45 years old. Like, the reality is like if I wanted to play in the NBA, I really don't think that that's possible. I mean, my prime has passed. But to your point, you said something really interesting. What if that's not the path you're supposed to be on? And if it's not the path you're supposed to be on, it's not. It's a lesser path. It's a lesser goal. You know what I'm saying? Like, the best path you can be on is the one that you're supposed to be on. Like, you have to believe that the divine created you for something bigger than you could ever imagine. So what if this silly dream of me making it in the NBA at 45 years old, what if that's a lesser goal? And that's what I have to believe. So again, on the outside, when you say to somebody like anything's possible, right away the naysayer's like, well, yeah, I mean, the truth is like you're never going to play in the NBA. Correct. But what if my path is actually better than that, because it's in alignment with the divine? Are you vibing with any of that?
100%. Because if you don't even attempt to join the NBA, no matter what, you're closing. Like, I'm a huge video game nerd, right? And I think of like video games, there's levels, and typically you have to be a certain level to be able to actually open the door up and walk down a certain path. You have to be equipped to be able to walk down that path. If you're living at a level 10 capacity and all the doors around you you have to be level 50 to enter, you're so limited of what paths you can go down in life. But if you're living at 100 level where you believe you truly can do whatever it is that you want to accomplish, every single door is open up for you. So if I wanted to pursue going in the NBA, even if I can't physically, whatever, I'm going to believe I can, because me trying is going to be able to introduce me not only to new people, but it can also set me up for exactly where I'm supposed to be in life. If I can just put myself in the position of trying, then I'm going to be able to open up a whole new world that would have been closed off to me if I didn't even put myself in that room. And man, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've entered rooms that I didn't think I should be in. Like, I'm a part of a club called Toastmasters. I'm the president of my local club. I never imagined that I could public speak. That was like my biggest fear. I'd have anxiety, panic attacks about that. I walked up in that club when I found it online one day, scared, horrified. There was 2 meetings in a row where I didn't speak, but I believed that something could come out of this. I believe that, even how I feel right now, where I feel like there's no way in hell that I can ever accomplish anything here, by me being in that room, it has opened me up to a whole new world that has transformed my life entirely. I have like 10 friends now that I got from the club. I have so many different connections, so many different ways and avenues that I can get like charged up and find people that want to help me rather than drain me. You really close those off when you don't live with the mindset that anything is possible.
Yeah. I love that. I love that mindset. And I think that that's a really, really good thing for people to hear, is that you may have this audacious goal. And the truth is that the divine maybe put that on your heart, but that's not really the goal. It's the goal for you to believe that you can pursue it. And that puts you in front of other people or doors or opportunities where you walk into the divine path that was probably set before you. That's a really great way to put that. I love that. You talk about unleashing the power of questions. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, that's something I learned from Tony Robbins. And that was one of the first things that I ever really sat down and I questioned. I was like, I remember reading that and I was like, what am I asking myself every day? Well, when I really got serious with myself and truthful for myself, I was like, why am I so anxious? Why am I scared to go out in public situations? Why do I feel such a stranger to myself? And when I really, what Tony Robbins says is that every question you ask yourself, you get an answer. And every time I was asking those questions, I was getting an answer in my head. I was reinforcing the belief that I had, like, oh, maybe I'm just antisocial. Maybe I'm just super introverted. Maybe I'm just an anxious person. And those were my truths because those were the questions I was asking. And when I said, actually, like, why am I good in social situations? Or why is it good that I go out with my friends? I was getting answers for that too. I was getting an answer that, oh, you have a lot of fun. Oh, you make everyone laugh. Oh, everyone loves talking to you. And I was getting a different perspective because I was asking different questions. And if you really sit down with yourself and you think about that every question you ask yourself, you're going to get an answer. It really empowers you because you're like, am I asking bad questions? Because 90% of the time, you most likely are asking bad questions. You're asking questions that are not going to serve you. You're looking for a response. The response is most likely hurting you. But you could ask that same question in a positive light and get a positive response, which is able to charge you up and fuel you to go forward. So I encourage everyone to pay attention to what they're asking themselves, because if you don't, like, you're not living 100% of what your potential could be.
So speak to that person that feels stuck, right? Like,
Yeah.
like put this in context. Like, what questions hypothetically are they asking themselves, and what answers are they giving them, what answers are they getting that are actually kind of holding them back, and how can they reframe that or maybe ask a different question?
Yeah, so for me, when I couldn't join the military, I was like, "Oh my God, why am I so handicapped? Like, I feel broken. I feel worthless." I was like, "I can't join the military. Now what?" Well, I thought of myself as a broken down man, and that was the response I was getting, and that was the identity that I was living with. And I really had to take a step back and say, "What can I do? Why am I not broken?" Well, when I asked why am I not broken, I got a response that was so much different and empowering, and I was like, "Okay, wait, I'd rather ask that question because I like the answer I'm getting for there." I'm not broken. And just because I ask myself, why me, or why did this happen to me? I'm going to get those responses that I think are correct. But when you reframe it, you give yourself a path to actually, change the trajectory of your life. But you have to really get structured in that, because I tried just asking myself questions and not writing stuff down. And I was getting overwhelmed and I wasn't able to hold on to the questions I did like and whatnot. And you have to really take it serious, where, like we were saying earlier, when you go to bed at night, you need to have enough energy to be able to still be in touch with yourself. And that's a moment right there that you can ask yourself, hey, what kind of questions was I asking myself throughout the day? Did I accomplish a lot? Did I do what I wanted to do? If the answer is no, then ask yourself why. What are the reasons why? What do you think is the reasons why? What kind of mindset were you in all throughout the day? And then ask yourself, okay, if I redid this day over again, what could I have done different? What could I have thought about myself differently? How could I view things differently? And write that stuff down, because it's going to give you information that you can go back to the next day and the next day and the next day, and build up a repertoire of things that work for you and resonate with you. But I can't tell you the amount of times that I didn't write stuff down, I forgot it. And then your mind can only remember so much information. And if we're constantly on go mode all day and we're getting new sources of information, we're going to lose the stuff that can really be important to us. But you don't know what's important to you unless you write it down. So I'd encourage, if anyone's stuck, to really get clear, write down exactly what's hurting you, and find a different way to view that stuff.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point. You brought up a lot of good stuff here, man. This is filled with like a ton of nuggets here. I hope people are loving this conversation. But like when you project something or broadcast something, the spiritual will reciprocate it. It's the law of reaping and sowing, right? And so like if you think that you won't accomplish something, to your point, a couple of questions ago, you won't. You know what I mean? Like if you think that you can't do it, you won't be able to do it. If you think it's going to be hard and it's going to be this tumultuous process, trust me, it will be. If you think that you're never going to find the love of your life, if you think you're never going to be successful, trust me, it will happen. Like the divine must, to some extent, it must reciprocate what you throw into it. And I think what you're saying is that if you're aware enough to ask the right questions, the divine will tell you the right answer and will show you the path. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I love how you kind of roadmap that out.
Let me touch on that one more time. I go to get my glasses changed once a year, right? I get my prescription updated because if I don't, then I won't be able to see. I go to the dentist to get my teeth cleaned every 6 months because if I don't, chances are I'm going to have cavities. Go to the doctors once a year because if not, then how do you know you're in good health? Why don't we do the same thing for our minds? Why don't we go for a check-in with our mind and figure out if what we have currently, if there's any way that we can better it? And when you take the time to really sit down with yourself and ask yourself, is the way that I'm viewing the world and living in this world right now the best way that it can be? Because most of the time it's not. I have to check in with myself. I check in with myself once a month, minimum, where I ask myself, is the world that I'm viewing right now, the lens that I'm seeing the world through right now, is this 2020? Is this the world I want to live in? And if it's not, you have to get clear on what it is that you want. If you're not seeing enough love, if you're not seeing enough abundance, if you're not seeing enough connection with God or spirituality, whatever it is that you believe in, it's time to really figure out like what is taking my attention away from that and what do I need to let go of and bring in. And when you take those check-ins with your mind, you get a lot of information because every one of us sees the world differently and every one of us experiences the world differently. And what might bring you connection to God or the divine might not bring me connection with the God or divine. But if I don't check in with myself and I'm constantly just saying, oh, what's working for everyone else isn't working for me. Maybe I'm just a failure or something like that. And I'm walking around with that lens. I'm seeing the world through a lens of I'm a failure because what's working for others isn't working for me. Think about that. There's so many people that are living life like that in so many different areas. They have an experience that doesn't work for them and they're walking around with the belief that that is truth. Mm-hmm. And if you take the time to go to your mental just doctor with yourself and sit down and say, what can I do to change this? How can I check in with myself? Everything can transform. I promise you on that, because I lived with a mindset of anxiety, anxiousness, that the world was a dark place because of what I knew. And I had to let go of what I knew for what I wanted. And the second I did that, I saw what I wanted. I started to attract what I wanted. I started to see love. I started to see happiness. I started to see peace because I was looking for it. Whatever it is that you're looking for, you're going to see. And you have to take those moments to say, what am I looking at the wrong stuff?
I love that, bro, man. We're out of time. I was going to ask you, what can people do to start this journey? And I think you just answered that question without even me asking that. I think that is great stuff. Guy, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this conversation, dude. This is like lightning quick, man. And we could do another 3 hours easily.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love it, bro. Thanks for your time today. Before I let you go, where can people find you? Where do you like to hang out? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on socials at Joey DePaola, JoeyDePaola. I work at CLS. That's our community, and man, we are doing some incredible, cool things over there. Firsthand what we're trying to bring into the world through community and through connection, and just empowering others to be the best versions of themselves. And you can find me in there. That's my home right now, and that's where I love to be.
I love it, man. Well, thanks for spending the time with me, and congratulations. It's like, congratulations. I'm proud of you. I sound like your dad. I'm proud of you at 25 years old, 24 years old, where you are in your journey, man. Congratulations. And by the time you get to be my age, brother, you won't even, dude, I can't even imagine where you'll be in another 1, 5, 10, 20 years, brother. So keep up the great work.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.